The fog arrived before the sun. It rolled down into the valley quietly, thick and patient, settling over the river and the construction site as if it had been there all along. By the early hours of that winter morning, visibility had dropped to almost nothing. The floodlights on site cut through the haze in weak yellow cones, illuminating only fragments of steel, cables, and unfinished concrete. Beyond that, everything disappeared. This bridge project had already been running behind schedule. Weeks of bad weather had pushed deadlines closer together, tightening budgets and testing patience. By early 1994, the pressure was no longer abstract. It was personal. Crews knew that another missed lift could mean months of lost progress. That morning's operation was supposed to be routine. A large, prefabricated steel section waited near the riverbank, wrapped in frost and moisture. The plan was simple. Lift the section, swing it across the gap, and set it onto the partially completed pillars rising from the water below. The crane selected for the job had handled heavier loads before. On paper, everything checked out. But paper does not feel wind. Paper does not see fog. The crane stood tall against the darkness, its boom angled over the river like a poised arm. Outriggers were set, load charts reviewed, radios crackled with short, tired exchanges. No one wanted to delay again. Medium shot of crane base and outriggers set on muddy ground. Faint radioactivity implied. Fog drifting around machinery. Static camera with subtle movement. Early morning darkness. 1990s industrial tone. As the lift began, the steel section rose slowly from the ground. At first, everything felt controlled. The crane responded smoothly, cables tightening as the weight transferred upward. Workers watched from the edges of the site, their breath visible in the cold air. Then the wind shifted. It wasn't a sudden gust, just a steady lateral push, barely noticeable at ground level. But at height, even a small change matters. The fog masked the movement, hiding subtle sway that might have been obvious on a clear day. The load began to drift, inches at first, then more. The crane no longer felt balanced. Sensors showed uneven forces. Moisture on the steel reduced friction in the rigging. Individually, none of these factors were critical. Together, they were dangerous. A sharp metallic groan cut through the fog. The load swung wider. The crane's boom flexed, not dramatically, but enough. The steel section struck the partially built structure below. Concrete fractured. Debris fell into the river. The load dropped the remaining distance and disappeared into the dark water. Silence followed. The crane remained standing, but it was no longer intact. The boom had suffered structural damage. The lift was over. As daylight crept into the valley, the fog thinned. Broken concrete edges and twisted steel were revealed. The river carried fragments downstream, indifferent to schedules and plans. No one was injured that morning. But the consequences were severe. The crane had to be dismantled. Investigations began. Procedures were rewritten. Crane failures rarely come from ignorance. They come from confidence. That winter morning became a quiet reminder. When fog hides details and pressure speaks loudly, sometimes the safest decision is not to lift at all.